Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Roster changes are potentially upon us. After Major 1 in Madrid, we are expecting many teams to potentially blow it up completely going into the rest of the season. The reality is, many of the AR players on these rosters have been struggling significantly. That may be the meta to some extent, but there are certainly challengers players and other players out there as well that will be looking for an opportunity in the CDL. What teams, what changes may potentially be made? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. This kind of mind-blowing as well, an image from, well, back in the day. I mean, this of course when Fellow was on Rise Nation. So I'm not quite sure which event this was. If any of you guys could potentially pinpoint what event it was, I think that'd be pretty impressive. I know that Fellow was on Rise during Infinite Warfare and I think the World War II season at times as well. And you guys can see the classic like open bracket stations behind them. It really is just a brilliant image. But this is like an insane picture, right? To think these two are like an AR duo now on the same team. Like this really is, you know, veteran vibes here from Felony. So yeah, impressive stuff. And I also like the, you know, you guys remember this Scump hoodie, right, with the Scump logo on? It really brings me back actually in the day. It also shows like what an impact Scump had, right? Because here's Lunas going to this event, obviously has become a great player in his own right now and is potentially going to get into the league soon. And yeah, hit with the duo. So amazing picture, I thought. And speaking of these two, we're going to discuss what happened in challenges yesterday as well with some of these results. So yeah, Afro and Co, they went down surprisingly earlier than expected because Afro's team has pretty much been destroying everyone in challenges in Europe so far, but the team that won it was actually those guys with Denza, Kez and Detain. So some familiar names in there and some talented players as well potentially coming up in the scene. I think the general feeling is that Afro still might be the top man in Europe right now if they wanted to branch out. But of course, as we're about to discuss, usually it's the case that it's the ARs that struggle to get into the league from challenges and the SMGs have an easier time because it's harder to find good SMG talent than AR talent. This game though, the way that it currently plays, the movement, the map design, the jackal, it means that AR players, at least good AR players, are arguably in higher demand this year, which is a pretty rare scenario. This also may help the likes of Super, and Super's team, unfortunately, they came seconds again, and it turns out, which is remarkable, I'm not gonna lie, if you're Miami and you're about to put him in your starting roster, which you may, and you're seeing these numbers, you think, wow, are we sure we want this guy? Because apparently he has had 11 grand finals losses in a row since his last win. And he's now had a third consecutive second place finish. So that's pretty rough. But yeah, pretty much what's happening is Super's got his visa approved. So he is going to be going out there to the US to spend the time with Miami. Super has been one of the top Spanish players for quite some time. And he's looking at a potential avenue to get into the CDL in the near future with Miami. We've talked, of course, about Lucky being, you know, sometimes inconsistent, sometimes not doing much on the map, sometimes pretty good. But maybe Super in for Lucky is something that at least the team needs to consider, and maybe that's going to happen shortly enough. In the Americas, this was the grand final, so kind of a surprising couple of teams in the grand finals. Illy's team went down early on. The team, though, that won, no real surprise, that was Fellow's team. So yes, Fellow, Lunas, Neptune and Craze, they got the win, and they've done it again. So yeah, Cup number 5 champs, these guys, and as a result, because they won the recent cup, they will be in the major conversation. Now, I don't think there's going to be a Challengers event in Madrid. Unfortunate, but also logistically a bit of a nightmare, I'm sure, for many of the players to get out there. So, Major 2, Major 3, Major 4, there will be Challengers events, which usually there is for Major 1, a Challengers bracket. And typically what happens is the team that wins that, one of their best players gets signed to the league, maybe multiple of them. That's usually how it works. It's funny, really, because it's plausible that the best player is actually on the 4th best team, but the pros and the coaches don't really watch, so they look at the team that won and they say, okay, we'll get their best player. And it's probably not a bad idea, but it may happen this time for the cup, right? Because the cup's now just concluded and it looks like Lunas from an AR side, Neptune from an SMG side, even Fellow. I think it's kind of tough for Fellow just because he's obviously been around so long. You kind of know what you're getting from him. But he has done an amazing job in bringing up so many young, talented players and making them them CDL ready, I think I would argue, and that may well be the case for several of these guys. So yeah, congrats to their whole roster, and we'll discuss which players they might need to come in for here in a second. One player that does not need to change though is Shotzzy. He led stage 1 in KD with a 1.2, making it the first time an OpTic player has led a stage in KD in the history of the CDL. That is actually kind of remarkable, isn't it, to think about? That in all of CDL history, we've never seen an OpTic player lead a stage in KD. It's been players that have been on OpTic, but or are now on OpTic, but not players that were on OpTic at the time. It's kind of crazy, right? Like Dashy never led a stage in KD. Very close, I'm sure, but probably Cellium pipped him to it on some occasion. So these are the numbers, and we can see in the history of the CDL, since the stages were a thing, these are the players that led the KD ladders. Keep in mind here as well, until recently, it was 5 qualifier matches rather than 7, and usually with only 5, because it's a smaller sample size, one excellent team will play probably 5 teams that aren't particularly good. One of those players will have a really good stint, and they'll have the best numbers in the league. Nowadays, with 7 games, probably more challenging to get KDs quite like this. But yeah, Huke, Cellium, Simp, 1.27s, Insight, Skyz, Simp, Cellium, Methods, who actually has the highest tier overall with that Vanguard Stage 2 performance that he still goes on about, but fair play. Attached, Cellium again, couple from Pred in Modern Warfare 2, so it has been done by an SMG, but that's the last time it was done by an SMG back in Modern Warfare 2, remarkably. Since then, Octane, Big Wake, triple Cellium, and then Scrap last year, and now Shotzzy leading it off with a 1.2. So yeah, I thought very interesting and impressive numbers, to be honest, but those players don't need to go anywhere. The players that may are some of the other ARs in the league. Maybe SMGs as well. I think there is an argument for a couple of teams that maybe a role change could be a good idea. Like, let's say in a hypothetical world, if you're Ravens and you could get Pred, not even necessarily saying they would or should, but let's say they could, and you could bring in Pred alongside Gwinn, TJ and Slasher. Someone would go to an AR there, or go to a flex. To be fair, a lot of the time in this game, 3 SMGs is perfectly fine. But I think Vivid is right now playing almost like an AR role. And it's kind of the same story to some extent on FaZe. I mean, Drazah's playing like a main AR role now. Cellium looks like the faster paced flex player. And that's perfectly okay. But I think there are some teams where, you know, you could bring in an SMG and then you could pivot one of your other roles, because, you know, the Vivid on the AR thing on Ravens never has fully made sense to me. But as Parasite says, this might be the opportunity for Challengers players to get into the league, certainly the Challengers AR players. So I wanted to share this clip from Cellium. This was actually the comms from the 1 versus 3 that he had. Obviously, even the first kill here on Sib, like he guns Sib out of the window, goes down to 9 HP. It wasn't really Sib's fault. It was the fault of the other 2 guys somehow bottling this situation, which was pretty ugly. But yeah, these were Cellium's comms during it, and then we'll talk about which players might need replacing.
Oh my god, you actually won this SMC. I'm not even trolling.
Both sides.
Never seen you lose these.
What's up?
Oh my god, he's so nervous.
Oh, we did it. Oh my god,
MC, you're better. Oh my god, let's
you
go,
are
bro.
so fucking good. Oh
Dante,
my
don't
god.
tell that, bro. You fucking suck.
Oh my god. Never counted selling him out, that's for sure. Let's go, bro.
But these are the KD numbers in the league as it stands. Now, this is just KD. We can also look at Slayer rating and stuff like that as well. So, you know, these are all relevant statistics, but KD is still an important one. We can order by hardpoint KD, we can order by KD, do what you want. Let's just look at KD straight up. We have a few Falcons players, and I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty ugly. You look at this list, because Falcons have had many players they've tried in their roster. Roxas is down nearly to a 0.7 at this point. King of Body's out of the league, but he was at a 0.72. Doom is here at a 0.83. I imagine, you know, King's here at a 0.9. He's only played like 1 series, to be fair to the lad. But, you know, Exon even as well, despite a good start, down at a 0.94. Wixel did have that good series. He actually has a 0.98, but, you know, I think they dropped him because he was playing for kills a bit too much and wasn't really sure what was going on. But of the players that may be replaced in teams that have been relatively competitive, these are the names to look at, really. And there's 2, I guess, that stand out. Paul X is absolutely one of them. He's had a stinker of a season, really, on the rocker, but they've actually been okay. Unfortunately for Paul X, the way that he played, I mean, the 1v1 he lost against Abuzah, the fact that his team as a result of that starting in losers, bit of a disaster class. And, you know, if Paul doesn't turn up at the major, I think he's got to go, frankly, from that Minnesota team because they do have some potential. The real question I would say, though, is around Sib and what the setup is on Cloud9. Because Cloud9 were meant to be, they would have expected to be, at least the 4th best team going into the season. And to be honest, Kremp and Mack are potentially a top 4 SMG duo in the game right now. But what we don't have is any production from the ARs. There's questions on the impact of the players. Sib started horrifically. He has improved slightly, but he's still at a 0.85 and attaches at a 0.92. Like, they are, with the exception really, I guess, of like the Falcons, or maybe you could consider like Heretics, they are the worst AR duo in the game right now. So those are some of the like, if Cloud9 bomb out of this tournament top 12, like, let's say they lose to Boston, they've got to do something, and it's got to be somewhere there. I don't think they'll get rid of Sib. I just don't see... They literally built the team around him. So, and I still think he's got more to give. I mean, we know how good this guy is. We know how good Attach can be as well. But I think the impact for Attach compared to KT is always a question that I've had for him over the last few years. And I think we're kind of seeing that again this year in some capacity. So I'd be worried if I was Attach, if the major didn't go especially well. But then again, accuracy is the coach, and he's your absolute boy for like a decade. So I don't know about that one. Obviously, Heretics, we might expect them to do something with Super, as and when the time comes. But there's a couple of other notable players here as well. Priestahh is definitely another one. He has improved lately, but if Gentlemates have a hard time at the major, Priestahh is probably the name that is closest to going. Lynz isn't going anywhere. Kismet isn't going anywhere and shouldn't do. Skyz, consideration, but I think he's been okay in general. He has a 0.99 overall. Priesthah's just been pretty ropey outside of a couple of series, and there's lots to talk about. Cobra, for example, another talented French player that might be an option there. I think also Big Wake, I mean, Awakening on Boston, he's got a 0.94 so far. Cammy, to be fair, has got a 0.95, but it feels like in terms of performance, there's been a bit of a difference there. Awakening has generally been quite weak. I don't think he's ever really had so far this season a takeover series. Cammy has. So then I guess the question becomes, whatever players you're thinking need to change, which players do you get in instead? Could it be the likes of, you know, a Yoda King or whatever, right? Because Illy's obviously been grinding. To be fair to Illy, it's not like he's been cooking in his results in challenges lately. He's kind of had a bit of a downturn at the wrong time in terms of performance and in terms of results. So there are other players. Obviously, we talked about Lunas, among others, a few minutes ago. But yeah, Illy's still been grinding the game. Whether it's going to be enough to get him a spot, I think people want to see him back in the league. I think some players would go and sign him. But there is an argument that right now there could be better options out there. But as Dante says, GG's to everyone we played this split. I've been playing horrible, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make up for it. See y'all in Madrid. So, yeah, we'll see how Sib performs there. I don't think Sib's going to go anywhere, almost regardless of what happens. But I guess you can't entirely rule it out if he delivers a bit of a stinking performance. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.